Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Inept General, and today we got a whole bunch of news drop on how Tamurkhan will play in the campaign once the Thrones of Decay DLC is released at the end of the month. We've got new information on Tamurkhan's starting position, Regiments of Renown, some unit stats, and how some of the new campaign mechanics are going to work, including his chiefs, who we have nicely aligned for us here. But without further ado, let's dive into some of the latest information we have on Tamurkhan himself. In terms of the Immortal Empires map, we now know that his starting position will be here in Kadafa, in the northern wastes, and in the Realms of Chaos map, it'll be at their Withering Fortress in the Blood Marshes. In terms of Tamurkhan on the battlefield, as a true reveler in death and decay, Tamurkhan the Corpse Maggot once borrowed into the flesh of other mortals to become their puppet master, never finding the perfect match, until now. Adoring the power that the mass and strength of an ogre body brings him, Tamurkhan grew attached to the only form he commands today, the body of an ogre tyrant, Karaka Breakmountain. Okay, that's true. This is just them saying we're not going to let him have a body switching mechanic. On the battlefield, Tamurkhan has a suite of abilities at his disposal. First up, Feast of the Maggot Lord, which is a passive ability only triggering upon his death. As a last-ditch attempt to cling on to the margins, delivers serious damage to the victim, outright killing those below a certain health threshold and granting Tamurkhan a second win to get back into the fray. So if he's about to die, we need to run away, he'll trigger this ability, and then you can get your units back involved in the fight. He will move quite quickly, so I think that'll be quite hard to avoid, especially once he's on his mount. So that'll be interesting. Something very interesting for multiplayer, maybe. It looks like it's limited to one use. It will heal him for 4%, it looks like. His range is 100 meters, and that's quite a bit of damage for 100 meters, it looks like. But a fun ability for him there. Nurgle's favorite son. This active ability grants him melee defense and increased ward save, and the Rotting Host passive ability decreases the weapon strength and leadership of those within 35 meters of Tamurkhan. And then the Black Cleaver active item will ensure they regret it, granting magic attacks, significantly increases armor-piercing damage, and a boost to base weapon damage for all allies within range. And we have an idea of Tamurkhan's starting Lord abilities: -3 wounds, Nurgle favors Sun ability, +5 for non-demonic units, melee attack, and immune to psychology for non-demonic units in Tamurkhan's army. Some pretty big buffs there for Tamurkhan. So really a buffing and debuffing character who's very tanky and hard to get rid of. With Karaka Breakmountain as his own, Tamurkhan's knowledge is matched only by his strength, and he will use both to gather the strongest warriors the world has ever seen and adopt them into his own twisted army, absorbing the many strength of those that could not defeat him. Tamurkhan can gain the fealty of many chiefs from various cultures of the Warhammer world and unify them under a single banner, his banner. This sounds like it's a bit, the idea behind the mechanic was to try and make you recreate the campaign of Tamurkhan as he went from the Chaos Waste down to the east of the Warhammer world, going through the Giant Lands, going through the Mountains of Morn, skirting Cathay briefly, and then coming back through, getting Drazawith to be his ally from the Chaos Dwarves, and then marching up through the Badlands, through the Border Princes, into the Empire, and making his final attack on Nuln. So it's the idea that you're just gathering these forces as you muster your attack on the Empire. So he does the gathering of these forces to him by using two key resources: dominance and fealty. Tamurkhan can decide how to best manage his acquired chieftains. Dominance, the main resource, is gained from winning battles. This must be spent to acquire chieftains and activate their abilities and add their units to his own recruitment pool. The fealty of a chieftain is increased by taking action that said chieftain approves of, whether it be raiding settlements, razing cities to the ground, or wiping various opposing forces off the map. For example, if Tamurkhan seeks a devoted chieftain from the Chaos Dwarves, he'd best express the same hatred for the Skaven as they do. Okay. When their fealty increases, Tamurkhan can reap the benefits in favor, units and special abilities culminating in a mighty thematic quest battle on his path to gaining boundless loyalty from these great warriors. It's only a matter of time. So if you look at this image that they gave us, we see at the bottom the chieftain's fealty. Increase the fealty of Kayzk the Befouled via the following action: creating plagues, defeating warriors of chaos, Khorne, Slaanesh, Tzeentch, or Norsca in battle. Pledged is recruiting Kayzk the Befouled will earn these rewards, unlocks the Chariots of Nurgle, unique talisman and trait for Kayzk. Attaining this fealty level will earn these rewards, unlocks Chiefdom Ability, unlocks Rot Knights, and +1 Chariots of Nurgle. And on this picture, it looks like we haven't got to the committed level yet, but this looks like maybe the fealty you're spending. There's 9 in the top left-hand corner and 013 put into committed at the moment. And you can activate his chieftain abilities with that same currency, so enable attrition for enemy armies in Kayzk's current army province. That is interesting. Purchased units recruited from the chieftain units recruitment panel. So you'll get Rot Knights from him, Chariots, and Toad Dragons. And there's a limited number he has at his disposal as well. And you get a talisman, the Icon of Decay. Okay, we're not shown how you can recruit them, but it looks like it'll just be this currency that you spend, and you'll get there eventually building it up. And you need to spend that on some of the units as well as you get them to the devoted section, where one imagines that's when most of their things will come through. So that's interesting. Okay, I like that. And you'll get Kayzk the Befouled, Kargan the Crazed, who will provide aspiring champions, hell cannons, and Dragon Ogre's Shagoffs. Kayzk Thimdarak, who's going to provide Thamir warriors and what we're now calling the Frost Dragon. And you get Mournhowl, who's going to provide skin wolves, feral mammoths, and war mammoths, which are very thematic with what Tamurkhan brought with him. And we have the Beast Shaman, Gruckmore Freehorn, who's going to provide Centaurs, Cygors, and Gorgons. And we have Ezar Doombolt, who's providing blunderbusses, Infernal Guard, and Dreadquake mortars. So that looks like a fun little gang that you can hang around with. And this means Tamurkhan's going to have really varied armies, but it looks like he is limited to the amount of these allied or chieftain troops he's able to carry at any one time. So that will be a limiting factor that maybe goes to unlimited once you get towards the end of the campaign. Not sure on that yet, but something to look out for. Kayzk the Befouled, this is the legendary hero that we're getting in the DLC. He's a Kurgan champion of Nurgle, and he serves as a living memory of what Nurgle's blessings can do to a soul. This mighty Chaos champion gave everything to Nurgle, losing his voice to Nurgle's rot, and sacrificing his form so that he could stand alongside Tamurkhan as a mass of corrupted flesh in service of the Lord of Decay. Being one of the first to join Tamurkhan's banner, Kayzk swept through the Chaos Wastes as his chief lieutenant, commanding his own infested gang of horsemen with the Rot Knights, who we'll be meeting shortly. In battle, Kayzk is a tank, his health regenerates in combat, and thanks to his corrupted flesh passive ability, he's granted an increased ward save when above a certain health threshold, making him harder to fell. And he's always mounted on top his Rot Beast, and he has access to Befouled Charge, a passive that triggers when charging, granting himself and nearby allies increased speed and increased charge bonus, while stripping the enemy of their charge defense versus large attributes. That's pretty good. Charge defense versus large, a lot of units have started to get that, and it's nullified some cavalry, but it looks like he can take that away, and so he's probably going to be the dwarves' #1 enemy now with that ability gone. Plus, with his Sword of Filth item, he can spread decay to those he strikes, afflicting them with decreased melee defense and armor. Then we're looking at the units that we know, which is the Chaos Lord of Nurgle. It looks like the melee lord will have sword and shield, unlike the Nurgle hero, who has a great weapon. The variety of mounts at their disposal, and they are durable and beefy, as one would expect from a Nurgle champion. They inflict poison and fear. I think fear might go up to terror, I'm guessing, depending on the mount. I don't know if they have access to a terror-causing mount, while buffing nearby troops by spreading leadership and melee damage reflection bonuses to them with the ability Rot or Die. And he has the ability the Father of Blades, and this is an active augment which increases armor-piercing damage and reduces the melee attack of nearby foes. The Sorcerer of Nurgle hero, we haven't seen this yet, and capable of harnessing the raw winds of magic, found themselves at home, Lord of Decay troop. Lore of Nurgle, Lore of Death they'll have, just like the generals that we currently see, and they'll have poison and fear as well. And they can also serve the armies of Nurgle as healers, with access to various means of regenerating their allies, making them a vital asset on the field. This is interesting. If they have a an aura of healing ability. I don't know if they'll have that, but you never know. And partner that with someone like Festus, and it could be quite a punchy combination. Pestigores. We've seen these guys, but blessed since birth by Nurgle, the Pestigores of disease and pestilence serve their god with trademark vigor of their fellow beastkin, alongside the infested, oozing, bloated skin from the mark of Nurgle. In the heat of battle, as well as debilitating their foes, Pestigores stand firm with their own durable skin and muscle, sporting a high health pool for an infantry unit, with their weapon of choice a two-handed great axe, and the Pestigores are masters at smashing through armor, piercing it with a single strike. It's pondered that the most high esteemed of Pestigores are blessed with a mutation, the Tears of Nurgle, and this is a chain hex that may be triggered only once, activating when within range of an enemy unit, resulting in an infectious secretions from every orifice that slow the opposition down before spreading through their ranks. This makes them a prime candidate for Vanguard deployment, another intrinsic trait of the Pestigores. They don't follow the pack, they lead. Okay, so that's a fun little ability for, like, just smashing in the front line. With these great weapons. I can't imagine they'll be particularly fast, but that is a fun addition, I assume, to the Beastman armies as well. Plague Ogres. Now, we were a little bit disappointed that we didn't get a undivided, or at least multiple varieties of Chaos Ogres, but maybe that will come later on down the road. Who's to know? We've already had Tzeentch, and we know we're not getting Ogres from their formation, so that ship's already sailed. Maybe in the next DLC package we get for that faction. Perhaps taking inspiration from the visage of their commander, Tamurkhan, the Plague Ogres are twisted amalgamations of a once ordinary ogre, with both body and mind controlled by the blessings of Nurgle. Joining Tamurkhan in his pursuit of the Empire, Plague Ogres are brutish humanoids that fell in battle at his hands before accepting the Lord of Decay's power in return for their lives. They grew fat with infestation and disease. Serving Nurgle as sluggish yet durable infantry, the Plague Ogres seek out large enemies with either their giant blades or great axes to slice them to ribbons. They're built for punishment. It'll be interesting if you put a unit of these guys up against a unit of man-eaters and see who comes out on top, because both of those guys have the anti-large. So yeah, I'm curious to see what that unit testing looks like. Rot Knights. This is a great addition that I didn't think they would add, but I'm very happy they have done. Rot Knights are one of the select few Chaos Knights blessed with the mark of Nurgle and the power to ride rot beasts into battle. Although the chaos armor they wear has grown rusty with time, the Rot Knights, a new monstrous cavalry unit for Nurgle, can still take a beating, sacrificing some of their speed for thicker skin with increased health, defense, and regeneration abilities. The goal of a Rot Knight is to lock down large targets on the battlefield and shred their health, thanks to their giant claws and a one-handed lance, delivering potent anti-large attacks. With regeneration, the Rot Knights have weakness to flame, but can regain their health over time and enjoy an increase to their melee defense when in the heat of battle. A regenerating... It's like demigryphs with regeneration, which is pretty great, actually. So we'll have to keep an eye on these guys. They could be a very powerful cavalry unit. You can outpace them, I think, in most situations, probably with any other cavalry. But if they get a hold of you, maybe your big giants or whatever have you, of your greenskins or anything like that, these guys will tear it apart. Or even the Boar Boys, which are pretty slow to begin with as well. Bile Trolls. Under the shadows of the Chaos Waste, Nurgle sets its sight on these trolls, infecting their flesh and burrowing deep into their guts, gifting them with a blessing that should have consumed them. What remained was a bulbous monstrosity, a bile troll, endlessly eating itself alive from the inside out, only to regenerate and devour itself once more. This blessing is a boon to their inherent passive regeneration in combat, letting them shrug off wounds as they strip their own damaged skin and replace it anew. With poisonous attacks on their side, the Bile Trolls can strike fear into any foe they approach and can pierce straight through their armor with their one-handed blade. With all that infestation going on beneath the surface, the Bile Trolls can expel it with a corrosive bile hex effect, softening the armor and flesh of their opponents and plummeting their victims' melee defense for an easy kill. Okay, so like is that going to look like the vomit attacks of other trolls? Or is that just an automatic hex? That'd be interesting to see if that's a projectile or not. I'm guessing not. We need to make sure that, I really hope in the new update that all trolls will be available to the Troll King. He hasn't been given the stone trolls, the river trolls. He should have access to all of them, as well as these new bile trolls, so you have a bit of variety in your Troll King armies. Moving on, we have the Toad Dragon. The true horror of Nurgle doesn't just lie within the bellies of its rotten soldiers, but also within the reptilian nightmare that often dwells in the northern wastes of the known world. The Toad Dragon, a rare-sighted monster of Nurgle, brings a thoughtless level of hunger and violence to anything that crosses its path, melting flesh with its breath or squashing victims flat with its weight. With the help of its cruel anatomy, the Toad Dragon swipes through armor with its thick claws and lashes out at targets with its proboscis tongue, snatching them from their hiding places and reeling them into its gaping maw. Those, however, are the lucky ones. Okay, it specializes in smashing through even the most compact of formations and holds its place within Nurgle as its largest, most expensive unit to date. With heavy missile resistances, that's great. The Toad Dragon borders on unkillable, but it's what lies within that truly makes it something to be feared. It has an active ability, Unspeakable Foulness. The Toad Dragon spews forth a blast of flesh-rotting horror, delivering explosive damage and inflicting poisonous burns on its victims as their skin slips off in sheets and their organs turn to liquid. Decay is but the least of their worries. That's interesting. Okay, so one has to assume, is that going to be just an explosion around them or an aimed explosion projectile? Curious about that. But yeah, Toad Dragon, nigh unkillable. There's a lot of nearly unkillable stuff. Usually legendary lords at this point, like Vlad, but like I wonder what, with the missile resistance, what level of missile resistance it might have. But we've seen historically that these hitboxes of these long, slender things that we've seen most recently with the Frostworm is so large that you can usually bring most of this stuff down, and it isn't super effective just because it takes up so much space and can be surrounded by so many enemy units. And we got some information on new Regiments Renown we're getting in the DLC, including a unit of Rotting Riders, which is RoR of Rot Knights, and the Angels of Decay, which are Plague Drones, and the Noxbringer, which is a Regiment of Renown Nurgle Soul Grinder. Now, we don't know exactly what their gimmicks are at this stage, but we know that those are free of the new Regiments Renown we'll be getting in the DLC. And then we got some Nurgle Legacy updates, so these are free updates for Nurgle as it goes. There's a reworked plague system, which looks interesting, and it seems Kugath is going to benefit from that particularly, as he's uniquely able to have many blessed symptoms active at once, allowing him to conjure much more fearsome diseases than his peers. I'll be honest, I haven't used the plague system a lot. I haven't played a lot of Nurgle on campaign, so it'll be interesting to see what the new system looks like. The cyclical buildings are being restricted to military buildings, it looks like. Everything else will be a bit more static, so you can have some decent defenses and things like that. Although the cyclical thing was kind of fun if you could time it correctly, but it was a lot of management of annoying stuff, and they're right in saying that it could have left you slightly susceptible on the defensive side of things. And it looks like in terms of the way Nurgle recruits, they're changing as well, tying it to Nurgle corruption. So you really want to recruit from the most corrupted areas you have, and that will give your guys a lot more health early on when you do recruit them. So that's interesting, and yeah, fun new change. Let's see how it plays on the campaign. Nurgle's tech tree is being split into two distinct groups, one focused on the military and the other on campaign faction bonuses. Now, Nurgle used to have army ability points based upon the amount of damage they take. That seemed unfair, and a consolation prize for losing units, so they're now just tying it to enemy unit in the battle map that is currently being affected by a negative effect or debuff. This plays into Nurgle's playstyle by just having you activate as many debuffs as possible in order to trigger your army abilities. We're confident these changes are going to enhance the Nurgle experience for everyone who plays them, whether you're scorching the lands with disease as Kugath, harvesting souls for Nurgle as Festus, or gathering an army of chieftains as Tamurkhan. And they say there's maybe one more, we know that's Epidemius, one more legendary Lord of Nurgle waiting in the wings, ready to be unleashed in 5.0. But there we have it. In next week, they're going to do, I think, Elspeth and then the Dwarves or the other way around. But we'll cover that when we get to it. On the whole, what do I think? The changes seem all positive. For the campaign mechanics, I like them. Initially, I think the whole game was designed around the realm of chaos too much. From a narrative point of view, I've always thought that was probably the best campaign they've done. But narrative campaigns, the problem with making them too specific, it kills replayability a little bit. And that's a problem that is really at the foundation of Warhammer 3 that I don't think they've really solved yet. But it's getting better with Immortal Empires and things like that. In terms of the DLC stuff, units, what we expected. In terms of just Nurgle theme stuff, great. My only disappointment is slightly not seeing a bit more Chaos General stuff, because this is where we were expecting to see some of that, including things like Siege Giants, Undivided, Chaos Ogres, stuff like that we maybe might have expected to see. But, you know, it's a pretty great Nurgle theme pack, and that's what we're getting. I think these are all positive changes for me. Looking forward to the units. Tamurkhan, I never expected him to have the body switching ability, so that's not bothering me that he doesn't have it too much. So all in all, the Chiefdom Mechanic looks pretty interesting as well. That's the big thing for him. I don't know, it depends how quickly or how slowly you get the mechanics, you get the resources. That's really, that will that's how the campaign will live or die. Whether it'll be a fun one or not is whether you feel it's being overly slow or it maybe passes too quickly in terms of getting those resources to recruit the chieftains and their units and their abilities. But we have to wait to see how that's balanced. And that's about it for this video. I think we've gone through it. Can't wait for next week. Hope you guys will join me then. If you enjoyed this video, do consider joining or subscribing, or even just dropping a like. Any little bit helps the channel. Got some exclusive content for our members already in the members section, including our ongoing Malice Darkblade series, and we are revisiting the old retro game Shadow of the Horned Rat. But as always, a huge thank you for watching, and I hope to catch you guys all on the next one. Alright guys, bye.